The Texas sun beat down hard over the dry plains, casting long shadows across the dust-choked land. It was the kind of heat that stung the eyes and twisted the air like smoke. Rachel McAllister pulled her wide-brimmed hat low over her brow and squinted into the distance. From her position near the cattle pens, she could just barely make out a group of riders tearing across the horizon, raising a plume of dust in their wake. A posse. Her stomach sank. They were headed south toward the riverbed, toward the old cottonwood grove. That morning, word had spread like wildfire through the settlement of Delaney's Crossing. A local trapper had been found dead, his throat cut and his cabin looted. The sheriff blamed the Comanche. Sod one had been spotted fleeing the scene. No one questioned it. In the minds of most settlers, Comanche guilt was a given. But Rachel wasn't so sure. She'd grown up with these stories of raids, of bloodshed, of fear, but something about the way the sheriff spoke this time felt rehearsed, almost too convenient. And that was before she found the trail of blood near the south fence. It was there, hidden behind the wild thistle, that she first saw him, a boy maybe 16, barely conscious, slumped against the tree line, a blood-soaked gash across his ribs. His dark eyes had met hers for a brief second, wide with pain but alert, wary. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. She knew he was Comanche. His face bore the faint remnants of paint, and his braids were tight, ceremonial. She had every reason to walk away. Helping him would mean turning her back on her neighbors, her family, and the law. If he was caught on her land, her father could lose everything. Worse, they could assume she helped him and hang her for it. Still, she hesitated. Then she heard the distant echo of hooves. The posse was close. Without another thought, Rachel grabbed the boy under his arm and hauled him to his feet. He groaned, half collapsing, and she struggled under his weight, dragging him through the brush to the old storage barn that hadn't been used since the drought 2 years earlier. She pushed open the rusted door and pulled him inside, laying him down on a pile of dry straw. Then she locked the door and slipped out the back. Just as the posse came into view over the ridge, they rode fast and furious, led by Judge Cutter, a bounty hunter who always looked like he belonged more in a saloon brawl than on a saddle. His eyes were cold, scanning the land like a hawk. Rachel stepped back toward the fence line, pretending to check on a broken rail. "You see anything?" Cutter called out. Rachel shook her head. "Just buzzards." He spat into the dust. "He's around here somewhere. Damn redskins bleeding out. We'll catch him before sundown." The posse galloped on, leaving behind the scent of sweat and gunpowder. Rachel didn't exhale until they were out of sight. Back in the barn, the boy was barely conscious. She cleaned a wound with water from the well and packed it with herbs her mother had taught her to use back when fevers took the younger children. He winced but didn't cry out. "Name?" she asked softly. "Kaya," he whispered, his voice hoarse. Rachel sat back on her heels, heart thudding. She had crossed a line. By helping him, she'd taken a stand no one in her town would understand. But something in Kaya's eyes told her she'd done the right thing, for now, because in that moment, Rachel didn't realize the full weight of what she'd just done. She hadn't just defied the posse. She had stepped into the middle of a storm that neither side would let her walk away from without a cost. It begins with the news that Kaya has escaped from captivity, spreading rapidly throughout the town. This news causes alarm among the townspeople, who quickly organize search parties to hunt him down. Their reaction reflects both fear and prejudice. They see Kaya not as an individual, but as a dangerous outsider who must be captured. This situation creates a tense and dangerous environment for both Kaya and anyone who might try to help him. In the middle of this chaos, Rachel plays a brave and risky role. She decides to lie to both her father and the sheriff, who represent authority and the town's power structure. By misleading them, Rachel deliberately buys precious time for Kaya to recover from his injuries. This act of defiance shows Rachel's growing sense of independence and moral courage. She chooses to follow her own beliefs rather than simply obeying her father or the law. Her decision also indicates that she has begun to see Kaya as a person, not as the enemy the town believes him to be. As Kaya regains strength, he confides in Rachel and reveals his true identity. He tells her that he is not just an ordinary Comanche man, but the nephew of a powerful war chief. More importantly, he explains that his presence in the area was part of a peace-seeking mission, not an attack. This revelation completely changes Rachel's understanding of the situation. What the townspeople see as a dangerous fugitive is actually a significant political figure who is working to build peace between the Comanche and the settlers. His capture and possible execution are therefore not just unjust. They are potentially disastrous. Rachel realizes that if Kaya is killed, the consequences will be severe. His death could be seen as an act of betrayal or aggression by the settlers, which might trigger a new wave of violence between the Comanche tribe and the town. This understanding deepens Rachel's sense of responsibility. She recognizes that her actions could influence not just one man's life, but the future relationship between two communities. Her moral dilemma shifts from simply helping an injured man to preventing a possible war. Despite being frightened by the dangers involved, Rachel makes a courageous decision. She resolves to sneak Kaya back to Comanche territory herself under the cover of night. This choice symbolizes her crossing a moral and personal line. She is no longer just a passive observer in the conflict. She becomes an active participant who takes a stand for what she believes is right. She risks being caught, punished, or even killed by either side, by her own people for aiding an enemy, or by the Comanche if they misunderstand her intentions. Her decision is also an act of empathy and trust. She chooses to believe Kaya's story and to act on it, despite the danger. This shows how their relationship has grown from fear and suspicion to mutual understanding. Rachel's bravery and sense of justice push the story forward, setting up an exciting and dangerous journey. Overall, the paragraph illustrates key themes such as courage, moral choice, trust, prejudice, and the consequences of misunderstanding. It marks a critical moment when Rachel chooses her own path, guided by compassion and reason rather than fear and social pressure. The title, Crossing the Line, reflects not only Rachel's physical decision to cross into Comanche territory, but also her emotional and moral crossing from safety to risk, from obedience to independence, and from prejudice to understanding. After Rachel decides to help Kaya escape and return to Comanche territory, their path becomes increasingly dangerous. A new threat emerges in the form of Judge Cutter, a ruthless bounty hunter who begins to track them down. Unlike the townspeople who may have personal or political motives, Judge Cutter is motivated purely by greed. His only concern is the reward he will receive for capturing Kaya. His presence raises the stakes significantly because he is relentless, skilled at tracking, and completely indifferent to the possibility of peace between the settlers and the Comanche. To him, Kaya is just a payday, and anyone who stands in his way is a target. Rachel and Kaya are forced into a tense and dangerous chase. Cutter's tracking abilities make it nearly impossible for them to rest or feel safe. The paragraph describes a narrow escape where they manage to cross a ravine just in time, leaving the bounty hunter temporarily behind. This moment is symbolic as well as exciting. The ravine represents a boundary between two worlds, the settlers' territory and Comanche land. Crossing it means entering a new and uncertain phase of their journey. It's not just a physical escape, but also a step into deeper danger and unfamiliar territory. However, their relief is short-lived. As soon as they cross into Comanche lands, they are captured by a Comanche scouting party. This is a realistic turn of events. Although Kaya is one of their own, The scouts cannot assume that Rachel is a friend. She is a white settler, and historically, settlers and Comanches were often in conflict. Her presence naturally raises suspicion among the scouts, who must protect their people from possible betrayal. Even Kaya's status cannot fully guarantee her safety at this point. Kaya immediately steps in to vouch for Rachel, defending her and explaining that she helped him escape and brought him back to their land. This shows not only his trust in Rachel, but also the bond they have developed during their journey. However, the Comanche scouts remain skeptical. From their point of view, it is extremely rare for a white settler to help a Comanche, especially someone of Kaya's importance. Many settlers see Comanches as enemies, so Rachel's actions are unusual and difficult to believe. This tension highlights the deep mistrust and cultural divide between the two groups. Rachel is then brought before Chief Tama, Kaya's uncle and a respected Comanche leader. This is a pivotal moment because Tama's decision will determine Rachel's fate. As chief, he must consider the safety and political consequences for his people, not just personal feelings. When he meets Rachel, he ultimately decides to spare her life, which shows that he trusts Kaya's word to some extent and perhaps senses Rachel's sincerity. However, he does not simply let her go. Instead, he tells her, "You interfered. Now you are part of this." This statement carries deep meaning. It shows that by choosing to help Kaya, Rachel has crossed a line that she cannot easily return from. Her actions have connected her fate with that of the Comanche people, whether she intended it or not. She is no longer just an outsider who made a single kind decision. She is now involved in the political and cultural struggles between the settlers and the Comanche. Chief Tama's words mark the beginning of a new chapter for Rachel, one where she must take responsibility for her choices and navigate the complex world she has stepped into. The title, Bloodhead Trails, reflects several layers of meaning. On a literal level, it refers to the trail that Judge Cutter follows as he hunts Rachel and Kaya. On a symbolic level, it refers to the blood ties between Kaya and his people, as well as the bloodshed that could result from misunderstandings between the two groups. It also suggests that Rachel's journey is now marked by irreversible choices and consequences. Once blood is spilled or ties are made, they cannot be undone. After her dangerous decision to help Kaya and her unexpected arrival in Comanche territory, Rachel faces the consequences of her actions. Chief Tama, Kaya's uncle and the leader of the Comanche, recognizes that Rachel's choice to betray her own people and aid Kaya was both brave and risky. However, he also understands that her actions have political significance. By helping Kaya escape, Rachel has unintentionally placed herself in the middle of a fragile situation between the settlers and the Comanche. Tama decides that Rachel must repay her debt to the Comanche for saving her life and sparing her earlier. He gives her a critical and dangerous responsibility. She must serve as a messenger and mediator, go-between in upcoming peace negotiations between the two groups. If she refuses, or if the negotiations fail, war may break out again. This demand shows Tama's strategic thinking. He sees Rachel's unique position. She is a settler who has gained the trust of some Comanche people. Because she comes from both worlds, she can potentially help bridge the gap between them. However, this role is also incredibly dangerous for Rachel because both sides might see her as a traitor. Rachel is deeply conflicted. She realizes that if she goes back to her community, they may no longer accept her. Her people might see her as a betrayer, someone who helped the enemy escape and sided with them. She could face hatred, rejection, or even punishment. On the other hand, if she stays with the Comanche, she is essentially turning her back on her heritage and family. This situation creates a painful internal struggle for Rachel. She is caught between two worlds, the world she was born into, and the world she has chosen to help. Her heart and mind are torn, and she must decide where she truly belongs and what she stands for. As Rachel spends more time with the Comanche, she learns a shocking truth that changes everything. The settler who was murdered, a crime that Kaya was wrongly accused of, had actually attacked a Comanche woman first. This attack set off a chain reaction of violence between the two groups. Kaya was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and prejudice led the settlers to blame him without seeking the truth. This revelation is crucial because it shifts Rachel's understanding of the conflict. She realizes that the settlers' version of events is incomplete and unfair. Violence and misunderstanding from both sides have fueled the ongoing tension. This knowledge strengthens Rachel's resolve. She sees that the real enemy is not the Comanche or the settlers individually, but the hatred, lies, and fear that keep the groups divided. She begins to understand the importance of her role in the peace talks. She can help bring the truth to light and possibly prevent further bloodshed. This realization gives her a sense of purpose. Even though the path ahead is dangerous and uncertain. During this time, Rachel and Kaya grow closer. They have survived together, faced danger, and shared secrets. Their bond is not just based on gratitude but on mutual respect and shared values. Both of them want to see peace and justice achieved. They are united by a shared desire for truth, and this deepens their connection emotionally. Their relationship represents the possibility of understanding and cooperation between two very different cultures. The title, The Debt, has multiple meanings. On the surface, it refers to the debt Rachel owes to Chief Tama and the Comanche for sparing her life. But on a deeper level, it symbolizes Rachel's moral debt, her responsibility to do what is right, even if it is difficult. She owes it to herself, to Kaya, and to both communities to use her position to help bring peace. In this way, the debt serves as a pivotal chapter where Rachel's role shifts from a passive helper to an active leader and mediator in a growing conflict. She must face her fears, choose her loyalties, and fight for the truth that could change everything. At this point, Rachel has accepted her role as a mediator between the Comanche and the settlers. She knows that peace cannot happen unless both sides are willing to talk, so she bravely returns to her hometown to plead for peace negotiations. This is not an easy decision. She is fully aware that many in the town will see her differently now because of her actions. Still, Rachel's courage drives her forward, motivated by her desire to stop the cycle of violence and misunderstanding. However, when Rachel arrives, she is met not with understanding but with hostility. The sheriff, who was once an authority figure she trusted, now views her as a traitor. From his perspective and the town's, she has helped Kaya, someone they believed was responsible for a murder. Even though Rachel knows the truth, the town has already formed its opinions. Fear, prejudice, and rumors have shaped their views more than facts. As a result, Rachel is arrested by the sheriff, symbolizing how society often punishes those who step outside its accepted rules, even when they are doing the right thing. Meanwhile, Judge Cutter, the ruthless bounty hunter who had previously tracked Rachel and Kaya, takes advantage of the situation. He begins stirring up the townsfolk, spreading inflammatory claims that Rachel has gone native. This phrase reflects a racist and prejudiced attitude common in that time period. It implies that Rachel has betrayed her own culture and sided with the Comanche, who the settlers see as enemies. Cutter's real motive, however, is not loyalty to the town but self-interest. He thrives on conflict and chaos because it gives him opportunities for power and profit. By turning the townspeople against Rachel, he strengthens his own influence and makes peace seem impossible. At the same time, Kaya demonstrates his loyalty and bravery by sneaking into town in disguise to rescue Rachel. This act shows how much their bond has grown. Earlier in the story, Rachel risked her life to help Kaya escape. Now Kaya does the same for her. His willingness to enter dangerous territory for her sake reflects not only personal loyalty, but also his shared commitment to seeking justice and peace. Together, Rachel and Kaya reveal the truth about the murdered settler, the one Kaya was falsely accused of killing, and the cover-up that followed. They expose that the settler had actually attacked a Comanche woman, which triggered the chain of violence. This revelation shakes the town's beliefs and challenges the lies that have fueled hatred between the groups. The sheriff is placed in a difficult position. On one hand, he has arrested Rachel and allowed Cutter to stir up fear. On the other hand, he now faces growing public pressure as the truth spreads. The townspeople begin to question what really happened. Moreover, the sheriff's own guilt starts to weigh on him. Deep down, he knows that Rachel is telling the truth and that his town has acted unjustly. This internal conflict pushes him to reconsider his position. Eventually, he makes a significant decision. He agrees to hold peace talks with the Comanche. However, he places a condition: Rachel must serve as the negotiator during these discussions. This decision is symbolic. By choosing Rachel as the negotiator, the sheriff acknowledges her unique role as someone who belongs to both worlds, the settler community and the Comanche. She has risked everything to bring the truth forward, and now she will have the chance to help shape the future of both communities. It also shows that peace, while possible, comes at a high personal price. Rachel has been imprisoned, insulted, and alienated by her own people. Yet, her determination and honesty have forced the town to face uncomfortable truths. The title, The Price of Peace, perfectly reflects this chapter's themes. Peace is not achieved easily or without sacrifice. Rachel's reputation, safety, and relationships have all been put at risk for the sake of a greater good. Similarly, the town must face its own prejudices and mistakes before peace can become a reality. This paragraph shows that real peace requires truth, bravery, and the willingness to challenge injustice, even when it is painful. After all the danger, betrayal, and difficult choices Rachel has faced, the long-awaited meeting between the Comanche leaders and the settler representatives finally takes place. This meeting represents a critical turning point for both communities. Tensions have been building throughout the story due to misunderstandings, violence, and prejudice, and now both sides must decide whether they will continue down the path of conflict or try to build a fragile peace. The atmosphere is tense because years of mistrust cannot disappear in a single meeting. Any wrong word or action could cause the peace talks to collapse and violence to break out again. Rachel plays a crucial role as the mediator during this meeting. Because she has earned the trust of both sides despite great personal sacrifice, she is uniquely positioned to help them communicate. She understands both cultures, their fears, and their hopes. Her courage, honesty, and willingness to stand between two opposing groups give the talks a chance to succeed. Through careful negotiation, truthful explanations, and emotional honesty, Rachel manages to broker an uneasy truce between the settlers and the Comanche. The word uneasy is important. This is not a perfect or permanent peace. It is fragile, based on promises and mutual restraint rather than full trust. However, it is still a major achievement. By helping both sides avoid immediate bloodshed, Rachel has succeeded in what once seemed impossible. After the truce is agreed upon, Chief Tama reminds Rachel of her debt. Earlier in the story, he had spared her life and given her the responsibility of acting as a bridge between the two communities. Now he demands that she fulfill that role fully. He insists that Rachel must stay among the Comanche as a living symbol of trust between the two groups. Her presence will show both the Comanche and the settlers that peace is possible and that cooperation can exist. However, this is not an easy demand. If Rachel refuses, the fragile truce might fall apart, as both sides would see her leaving as a sign of distrust or betrayal. Rachel is faced with one final life-changing decision. She must choose between returning to her former life with her people, or staying among the Comanche and accepting a new role and identity. Returning would mean comfort and familiarity, but also likely rejection, since many settlers now view her as a traitor. Staying means walking away from everything she once knew her family, home, and culture to live between worlds, belonging fully to neither side but connected to both. This decision reflects Rachel's personal growth throughout the story. She began as a young woman caught between fear and duty, but she has become a brave mediator who chooses a difficult but meaningful path. Rachel ultimately agrees to stay. This choice symbolizes her commitment to the fragile peace she helped create. She understands that true peace requires ongoing effort and personal sacrifice. Her decision shows her courage and sense of responsibility, not just to Kaya and the Comanche, but to both communities and future generations. In the final scene, Rachel stands on a bluff overlooking the land as the two groups part ways after the meeting. The atmosphere is still tense. There is no guarantee that peace will last. However, no blood has been shed, and that alone is a victory. This moment is both hopeful and bittersweet. Rachel has succeeded in preventing immediate violence, but she knows that maintaining peace will be a long and challenging process. The scene emphasizes that peace is not a single event, but an ongoing journey that requires continued trust, communication, and courage. The title, What Comes After, is meaningful because it focuses on the future. Many stories end with a peace agreement, but this paragraph looks beyond that moment. It asks what happens after the truce is signed, after the hero's choice is made, and after the first steps toward peace are taken. Rachel's decision to live between worlds shows that the struggle for understanding and harmony continues even after the main conflict ends.